Hey, y'all, I'm Ebony K. Williams here, host and attorney extraordinaire. Welcome to Holding Court, where we analyze the very latest in legal headlines, the ones that got all the streets talking. You know what we do? We dig deep into how the courts impact the culture. We break it down, going straight from gavel to your news feed. And every week, we keep it 100. Right, Dustin Ross?
That's right.
Dustin Ross, my love, we're going to get straight to it today. So,
Let's do it.
y'all saw it, and if you didn't, we're going to tell you about it. Former Congresswoman Cori Bush. Cori Bush's husband has been charged with COVID fraud, okay? Specifically, I think it was like a $20,000 PPP type of situation. And, I want to break that down to y'all. What does that mean for Cori Bush herself? Why did this particular individual, why is he facing charges and not some others? And kind of the overall wisdom of doing business, because there's some other news headlines as it relates to Cori Bush and her husband. Let's talk about the wisdom of doing business with our spouses. We're going to get into the tea of that. Also, a former federal prosecutor is making some headlines with some legal predictions around this Trump administration. And this is just kind of a general catch-all, y'all, that I wanted to go through because a lot of y'all are wondering, like, every day you're hearing reporting on the awful things this administration and Donald Trump himself are doing. And y'all are like, yeah, but what's being done about that? What can be done about it? What we hear in the federal judiciary, the judges, they're our last stand. They're doing what they can. They blocking some shit, thank God. But really, ultimately, what does that look like? How is this really going to play out? And I want to give y'all some answers around that. So we're going to go through that, okay? All right. So just last week, federal prosecutors have filed criminal charges against the husband of former Congresswoman Cori Bush, okay? Y'all know Cori Bush was the very first Black Congresswoman from the state of Missouri. Shout out to her for that. She was a two-term Congresswoman, but she was defeated this past year in a primary defeat from another Democrat and ultimately lost her congressional seat. She is married to a gentleman named Cortney Merrits. Cortney Merritt, we'll get into like when they got married and stuff in a minute, but he has been charged federally with 2 counts of wire fraud for allegedly filing sham applications in both 2020 and 2021 with the Small Business Administration, enabling him to collect money aimed to help struggling businesses make payroll. Yes, y'all know, classic PPP loan situation. The charges were filed by the former chairman of the Missouri Republican Party, surprise, surprise, who was appointed by a D.C. U.S. attorney appointed by Donald Trump. Surprise. Now,
Yep.
Cori Bush's husband's attorney told St. Louis Public Radio that he intends to plead not guilty. Let's see what else we've got. According to the indictment, Cortney Merritt allegedly lied on the application, forged documents in order to receive a bigger loan than, I guess, what he actually needed. One loan was rejected because it was nearly identical to a previous application that he submitted. So he resubmitted another one, whatever. Ultimately, federal prosecutor says he received $20,832 that was forgiven by the government. I know when I saw that number, I didn't think that was a very large number, but we'll get into
But it could have been
it. Could have been
$800 if
$5.
he, yeah.
Correct. Because of the exactly. Cori Bush, again, like I said, served 2 terms. He represented the St. Louis-based seat in Congress before losing it to a Black man by the name of Wesley Bell, who primaried her in the Democratic race, or Wesley did go on to secure the seat in the general election. Cori herself, this is important to note, is not being accused of doing anything wrong. This is simply her husband. Controversy has swirled around the couple before. If this sounds kind of like, why does Cori Bush and her husband sound familiar? Well, Cori Bush did hire her husband as her security guard, and a complaint was filed at that point when she was still in Congress, alleging that her husband's employment with the Bush campaign violated federal law. There was an investigation, but ultimately it was dismissed. The Office of Congressional Ethics did dismiss that investigation. So just in general, D, let me get top-level thoughts, reactions when you saw Cori Bush, husband, federal charges.
I got nervous. Now is not a good time. Cori Bush, is no secret that she's a target for all of the MAGA extremists. They love attacking Cori Bush amongst a list of others, but she's one of the names that you hear continuously coming out of their mouths. And I hate that her family and her life is going to be impacted by this because that obviously, like you said, the childs were charges. The charges were filed
Uh-huh.
by Ed Martin, who was a Republican. He was
Mhm.
a Republican Party head or whatever.
Yep, yep.
It's all backlash from Donald Trump and his cronies. That's what this is. And so I'm nervous about voices that have been loud in opposition
Mhm.
to his bad and corrupt ways. I'm worried about them being protected during this time.
Mm.
And I'm worried about them being vulnerable at risk of shit like this. Now, if he took this money and if he did what they said he did, that's what it is. It's very simple. But we know this, and they found this out because they're looking for something and
Yes,
ways to attack her. So
absolutely.
this represents a bigger game at play here. You know what I'm saying? And that's what gives me a little bit of pause as I'm
Mm.
reading this.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So I think with this one, a few different things are true at the same time. Like you said, this
Mhm.
is the first obvious truth is this is a political attack. Period. Doesn't mean that we're gonna get to the merits of the case in a second.
Mhm.
Relax. Slow down.
Mhm.
First and foremost, let's name the overarching obvious piece that this is a political witch hunt against Cori Bush specifically because of her high visibility as one
Mhm.
of the most consistent, visible, loud, proud opponents of Donald Trump, the MAGA movement, and all of the above, right? So it's that. So those, and I'm saying that for the sake of those that are like, of all the PPP loan scandals that happened, allegedly, not saying that Courtney did anything, allegedly, certainly, surely $20,000 cannot be the top ticket item. Well, it is when you are on a political witch hunt. Like you said, Dustin, it could be $800, it could be $5. There
Yeah.
is zero, not little, not a small, zero margin for error when you go about the important, necessary work of, as the late great John Lewis charged us to do,
Come
getting
on.
into good trouble.
Good trouble. Mhm.
So when you choose to do the work of the ancestors and do the good trouble work, I hate to say it, D, but really you have to move so cleanly, so precisely. You do almost have to be perfect. Now, I don't think that's right. I don't think that is reasonable. I don't think it's fair. But my
Right, but it's
lived
how it is.
experience tells me that that is how it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's go to the next element. This notion of Cori Bush being the centerpiece here, even though one of the most important lines I read in the reporting, Dustin, was that Cori Bush herself is not being charged with anything. So now this has to lead us to some level of discussion around who you marry and how they move, right?
Yeah.
And how that can impact you depending on your work and what you do and maybe the heat that you may exist in. What do you think about that?
I think that that's just how it is. It's a reality. Yes, you know what I'm saying? It kind of ties into what we were talking about and another conversation that we had about marriage and how you end up
Mhm.
basically joined. Their
Mhm.
things become yours, your mess becomes theirs. So that's why we ended up here with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, again, I don't think in a perfect world, in an ideal
Mhm.
society, who you marry, it should be your business. But we don't live in a perfect world, and we damn for sure don't live in an idealized society. And if anybody does, it's damn sure not Black women. Therefore, when
Mhm.
you dare to have the audacity to be a Black woman that goes about the work of the good trouble, as Sister Cori Bush has done, you need to know that it's going to come with incredible scrutiny, not just around you, but around your spouse, your children, your mom and them. So, there has to be, I think, at some level, a family conversation, right? Like, hey, I'm going to do this. So yes, I think this requires a family conversation, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm about to run for Congress. I'm gonna make a play for city council. I'm gonna run my ass for dog catcher. Whatever it is
Mhm.
that you have decided that you have been called to do in this world that makes you a public servant. So let's also use some real terms here. When you are an elected official, you are a public servant. You literally work for the people. And I agree. that should come with the highest level of scrutiny. So when Cori Bush decides to do that, she's got to sit her people down, including the husband. So let's go to the timeline. I think it's very interesting. We got to remember Cori Bush was first elected to Congress in 2021, and she completed her year in 2024. She got married to Cortney Merrits in 2023. So it was in the middle of her serving as a United States Congresswoman. I think that's interesting because that kind of puts a kink in my example, right? Because that means she made a decision to marry him in the midst of serving in her capacity as a sitting congresswoman. I'm not going to say that's a bad idea, but I do think if you're going to do that again, it has to be even more pronounced that, hey, baby,
Mhm.
like we've been together however long we've been together. We've been functioning however we've been functioning. But now that you are essentially going to be promoted in your capacity as my partner to now my
Mhm.
lawfully wedded husband, I kind of need you to even keep it more tight, basically. And I'm not saying she did or didn't have this conversation. I'm saying it's a conversation that I would highly recommend, right?
Right.
Because now you too are not operating in your individual capacity. You are operating as a tenet, if you will, of my capacity as a United States Congresswoman. And you need to know
Mhm.
that. You need to move like that. Again, not saying he did or didn't. I'm saying that it needed to be said and discussed. I have to imagine the Obamas had a million conversations like this. I have
Oh,
to
for
imagine.
sure.
Right, right. I have to imagine that Michelle and Barack set those girls down and had a million conversations like this with them. What you saw them Bush twins get away with, y'all
Mhm.
black asses
Mhm.
cannot get away with.
Mhm.
And again, not saying the husband did anything wrong. I'm saying that even the appearance of
Of it. Yeah.
impropriety
Yeah.
becomes a massive problem. And here's the word distraction
Yep.
when you are a black person in position. Go ahead,
Oh,
D. I know you
man.
got something to say about it. Go ahead.
I mean, it just is what it is, right? This is
Mhm,
why like, this is totally unrelated, but it still makes
mhm.
sense. Toya, Rushing, who we know used to be married to Lil Wayne.
Oh,
Um,
mhm.
we
I
saw
never knew her
recently her
actual last name. I didn't know, I
Yep.
thought it was Johnson or something else. Go
It
ahead, though.
it was Johnson originally, but I know
Okay.
her husband's his last name is Rushing now. So she literally just last week, her brothers were going the media, talking to
Mhm,
the internet, going live,
mm.
making up these wild claims, lying, making up lies about the way that Toya and her daughter Reginae Carter spend their money, and acting as if they're entitled to attach themselves to some part of something from them. And
Mm.
they got $1 million for this. We ain't get our money. We ain't get none. We ain't see none
Mhm.
of that from a show you were paid to be on. So sometimes I say that to say you either have to have family members when you're a person of interest, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
either have to have family members that understand that and know how to support you and still have
Mhm.
a very relevant place in your life without trying to attach themselves to the interest around you,
Yep.
or you have family members like this who show their ass, and you need to either there needs to be a conversation had like at some point, just like you said, or else there needs to
Mhm.
be a very clear boundary set and a
That's it.
wall built up to protect you from people because unfortunately, when you're a
Yeah.
person of interest, you can't have the people around you showing their ass. That's just what it is.
It's a non-negotiable. It's a
Yeah.
non-negotiable. And then that is an extreme example, but one that we see all too common. And then I think this Cori Bush thing with her husband, not talking about the PPP loan of it all. Let's go back to the original ethics violation investigation. Again, ultimately dismissed, but took up too much space. It didn't land, thank goodness for Cori Bush, but it was a conversation that wasn't necessary, in my legal
Mhm.
opinion. And it
Mhm.
was just more noise during her election that wasn't necessary.
That's
Did she
right.
lose the race because of it? I don't necessarily think so. Was it helpful? Absolutely fucking not. So let's run down these facts in case y'all don't remember. First of all, her husband, before he was her husband, Cortney Merrits, he already was her security guard. Okay. He
Mhm.
worked as her security prior to them getting married. But then somebody thought it was wise for him to stay on in that capacity. Let me just keep doing the reporting for a minute before I speak. He stayed on working as her security guard after they got married, and she continued to pay him $2,500 bi-monthly. So he was making $5,000 a month per her Federal Elections Commission filing. She maintains that that was a fair market rate, actually fair or below market rate, and that he had extensive experience in the area. $5,000 a month doesn't sound too much to me. Sounds reasonable. But again, for an ordinary citizen, when you're
Right.
talking about using your office money to pay for an expense that ultimately comes back into your household. See, that's the issue. Not that he wasn't worth $5,000 every month to be your security. I'm sure he was worth that and then some. But the perception is that y'all could be finessing because it's coming right back into your household. That could be a perception if you want to make that kind of argument.
Yeah, the
Versus you
optics.
yeah, the optics versus you could just as easily hire somebody else who is
Yeah.
not your husband, who you don't share assets with, who you don't share a legal financial community with, to do that same job. And this
And
wouldn't even be
that
no conversation.
there you go right there. Sometimes you have to think and operate that way. You know, it's called risk management. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to
Mhm.
manage the risks that you take. And that is one that they could have managed. She didn't have to hire him. Just hire somebody else, then they can't even say it. They can't even bring it up. They
And then you
you
just
can't
take
even
it off the
create it.
table. You just take it
Yeah.
off the table. And I'm gonna cite another example that's related, different, but related.
Mm-hmm.
My sister-in-law in the law, Fonnie Willis. Fonnie, ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am. I understand we all get lonely sometimes. I understand we all are women and have
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah.
But must we be sleeping with counterparts in the workplace? And really, must we be doing it with subordinates? And must we be doing it with subordinates like Nathan Wade, who like to run their motherfucking mouth?
There you go. Running that damn mouth. Yep.
So I'm gonna lay it out. I'm gonna use Cori Bush, former
Mm-hmm.
Congresswoman. I'm gonna use Fonnie Willis,
Mm-hmm.
in many ways embattled prosecutor. Yeah, I said
Mm-hmm.
it. And I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
use these two black women who have worked extremely hard to be where they are.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Yeah, Ebony.
And I'm gonna cite the downfall of the D. And the D I mean is not the D y'all are thinking about, with your dirty ass minds. It is the downfall of decision making.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
want these sisters to make better decisions around the D. Don't mean you can't have the D you want, but I want you to think and move accordingly as to how to, as Dustin Ross just said, manage the risks
Mm-hmm.
associated with that particular D and how it shows up in your broader decision making.
Yeah.
That really was a word. I really hope
Yeah.
some of y'all sisters really, really let that land.
I hope
Truly.
it did for real. Cause
For
you got to
real.
learn
'Cause
how
I
to
mean
keep
that.
your name clear. You have to.
Yes. I mean that. It's too hard to get to where y'all at. It's too
Mm-hmm.
hard. These are once in a lifetime opportunities. And you didn't just luck up on them.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody just gave it to you. I know that to be true. I watched Cori going door to door to door to door, unseating a 10-year incumbent in that
Right.
seat,
Right.
to become the first black woman to serve in the lower chamber from the state of Missouri. That ain't no easy shit.
No, it's not. And to
We
see it
watch,
just
yeah, I mean, and for no
mm,
ladies, let's just for as much as people want to talk to men about using their big head and not their little head, come on now, we gotta be fair and even-handed here. For as much as we want to criticize and make fun of men for only being able to think with their PP, we gotta hold ourselves accountable when it comes to our romantic activities and
yeah,
make sure that we are thinking with our big heads.
funny.
Bonnie, and to you too, Cori.
Yeah. Yeah.
You love the man, you want the man, marry the man. Nobody has a problem with that. Why is the man still on payroll?
Right.
Period. And then once we're married, Why? I'm gonna just tell you straight up. This is no legal analysis. This is just black woman personal opinion, Dustin. If I
Mhm.
was married and my husband said, "Yeah, baby, I see they giving out this federal funds for the businesses that need help, and I do have a legitimate business. So man, how much you short, baby? 20,000. Don't worry about that. We gonna figure it out
Yeah.
because I don't even want a paper trail
Yep.
of
I don't even want you
you
connected.
as my husband because I know I'm about to make a big stink in the name of righteousness."
Come on.
And I don't want nobody to be able to say a motherfucking thing about my husband having his hand out to the government. How about that?
Yep.
So ladies, let's just get on our decision making. Okay? Great. Missing out on a show that everybody else is talking about just isn't an option for me. I am constantly signing up for this streaming service or that one, and then after a few months, I realized I've been paying for the service way after I finished the show. Yeah, sound familiar? I thought so. In fact, I actually learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused every month. And I also just learned about Rocket Money, where you can see all of your subscriptions in one place and then cancel the ones you're not using anymore. Rocket Money is a personal finance app and it helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and even helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when you use all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted and unused subscriptions and help reach your financial goals even faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/holdingcourt today. That's rocketmoney.com/holdingcourt. rocketmoney.com/holdingcourt.
Hi, I'm Alvin Williams, host of the true crime comedy podcast Affirmative Murder. Are you the kind of person that calls your best friend immediately after watching the latest true crime documentary, jaw still agape, to excitedly talk about that final twist in the last episode, and even discuss theories you came up with while eating food on your couch? Affirmative Murder is the true crime comedy podcast hosted by just those kinds of friends. Join myself, Alvin, alongside my partner in true crime, Francel Evans, every week as we dive into a new true crime case while speculating wildly about some of the hottest news in pop culture. What's at the bottom of the ocean? Who is in the Subway tuna salad? Did Justin Bieber fall victim to an arranged marriage? We don't know the answer to any of these questions, but we probably will go on tangents about them before getting into the true crime story. You can find Affirmative Murder every Thursday wherever you download podcasts. Again, that's Affirmative Murder, your favorite couch detectives' favorite couch detectives.
Now, another day, another piece of anarchy, disaster, and chaos from the Trump administration. And many of you are
Mm.
rightfully wondering, what's really what will he ever get a consequence? Is there anybody? Yes, again, we appreciate the federal judiciary. We appreciate these judges saying not on my watch. We appreciate them, playing whack-a-mole and shutting a lot of this shit down, but they can't shut it
Mhm.
all down. And then we see Trump and his people being defiant as hell. And even when the judges create orders, he will defy them. So what, if anything, can be done against Donald Trump? It's a legitimate question, Dustin.
Yeah.
So I want to share with you, this is the analysis and the take of a gentleman by the name of Glenn Kirshner, okay? Glenn
Mhm.
Kirshner, brilliant legal mind, analyst, has worked for a lot of big organizations. This is his legal take. He believes that Donald Trump and his Department of Justice will ultimately have to face criminal contempt charges. I said contempt, okay? Found in contempt, criminally, not civilly, criminally,
Mm.
over their defiance of specifically U.S. District Judge James E. Boasberg's orders to halt deportation. So again, I know y'all, it's hard to keep this shit straight. There's so many judges rightfully shutting this Trump shit down, and Trump is being Trump and not complying, totally defying. And this legal scholar, Glenn Kushner, is predicting that eventually somebody's going to say enough is enough, and somebody being a federal judge, and hold Donald Trump in criminal contempt of court. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Now, we know that Trump invoked this old ass antiquated 18th century wartime act last week in order to deport hundreds of immigrants to a prison in El Salvador. Again, in absolute active defiance, totally
Wow.
ignoring an order from that federal judge, Boasberg. He has since called for the judge to be impeached, as we talked extensively about here in Holden Court. And it was crazy because we had produced and recorded that episode, and literally 48 hours later, here comes
Damn.
Trump.
Yep.
Yep. Calling him a what? Democrat activist.
Yep.
Activist
Yep.
judge. There you, I mean, can we call it? Can we call it? But it was totally predictable. Trump sidestepped a question over whether or not his administration violated the court order because he knew damn well he did, willfully,
Right.
wantingly, flagrantly. And that's it, and that's all. So again, this was on a Sirius XM show that this legal scholar Kirshner gave this prediction. He said, listen, hey y'all, I was a prosecutor for 30 years. You don't write in pleadings or say in court things like, judge, we don't believe the information you're looking for is relevant. You just don't talk to a judge like that. Guess whose determination that is, sport, not yours. I love when somebody calls you sport. Don't you
Oh
love it?
yeah. Yeah. So it's
Hey,
perfect.
sport. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
sport. It's the
Mm-hmm.
judges. We're going to see the C word uttered very soon. And the C word is contempt. It will start as criminal contempt. It will very likely morph. It will start, he says it will not start. And then he said it will likely start as civil contempt, okay? And then it will morph into criminal contempt. So that is his legal prediction. And I wanted to bring it on the docket, Dustin, because I think it's an interesting strategy. I think when we look at what is happening from this White House and this administration, and then we look at, the story we reported on last week where you've got the biggest law firms in the world, including Paul Weiss, kowtowing, bending. We got
Mm-hmm.
universities like Columbia University, it's one of the most prestigious institutions, higher learning institutions in the world, kowtowing. Trump says he's going to take $400 million from your endowment. Ultimately, you bend at the knee, Columbia University.
Wow. So
And
shameful.
shameful. And so at some point, people are rightfully wondering, Dustin, who and what will it take if it's not going to be the biggest law firm, if it's not going to be the Ivy League institutions, if it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be, I don't know, the most powerful Democrat senator in the U.S. Senate, it's not going to be Chuck Schumer. Who and what will it take to stop this madman? And I actually like this legal scholar's approach that ultimately it's going to take a judge, a federal judge, to
Yeah.
not just give an order that we see Trump may or may not follow, but it's going to take a motherfucker holding his ass in criminal contempt of court. I think it's interesting. I don't think it's far-fetched. I think it could happen. I don't know that we've seen historically, Dustin, a sitting president held in criminal contempt of court, but we've also never seen a sitting president like this motherfucker.
You just took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we ain't seen none of this shit before.
Mhm.
This is completely out of control and such a far cry from what we know our political system to be. Now it's always been corrupt, but
Yeah.
this level of bold, brazen, just defiance of rules and the systems in place is unprecedented.
Absolutely. So y'all stay tuned. Hey, we're going to follow it. I'm not sure exactly when we could see a contempt order against Donald Trump, but I like where this man's head is going. That's why it's on the
Mhm.
docket. I like it. I like
Mhm.
it. I hope the judges are seeing it. I hope they're hearing it. I hope they're considering it. I
Hope
hope
they're
a few
inspired by it.
I hope they're inspired by it. I hope they're called to action by it. I hope
Mhm.
they see it as a challenge, a race to contempt is what I want to see. Meaning I want to
Absolutely.
see 5, 6, 7, 8 judges hold this motherfucking ass in contempt at the
Yeah,
same
who's
damn
bad?
time. That's it. I really do.
Mhm.
I really, really do. And I think it's going to take something, it will take something that severe, that unprecedented to slow down the train wreck, the absolute judicial, administrative train wreck, cultural train wreck that is Donald Trump in this moment. Final words from this legal analyst, Kirshner, here, and we'll wrap up. For the viewers at home, here's a fun fact. The only time a judge can appoint an independent prosecutor to prosecute a case, it is contempt of court for violating court orders. So hold on tight because the ride is going to get a whole lot bumpier. I think that's a mic drop. We'll leave it there.
Wow.
And
I
we'll
mean,
continue
I
to
believe
stand
it.
by. Yeah, we'll stand by for the bumps.
Yeah, unfortunately, we will. We're just going to take the bumps and the bruises, ain't we, Ebony?
Yeah, take them on the fucking chin. Yeah.
Like Teddy P said. Okay, taking the bumps and the bruises and all the pain. So a 2-time loser. That's us. We taking the bumps and the bruises right now. We are.
No, we are. I'm laughing because y'all should see Dustin's face right now. Oh, my God. All right, listen, jurors. We love y'all. We will be back. Same time, same place, sessions. Back court will be back in session.
That's
and in
right.
the meantime, Dustin, you would like us to do what, my darling?
Read your terms and your conditions, please.
Holding Court is produced by Uppity Productions. Host and executive producers here, Ebony K. Williams, yours truly, and the Dustin Ross. Executive producer in Dossie, McCraw. We've also got our senior producer, Ashley Hobbs. And follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any and everywhere you get your podcast.